Welcome to The Bottom Line with John Harrison, your tour guide through all things financial. Build out your financial skill set with crucial knowledge and tactics and easy to follow answers to all your essential money questions. And now, your host, certified financial planner, ordained minister, multi-published author, and president of Aspire Financial Advisors, John Harrison.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Bottom Line. I'm John F. Harrison, your host, and in this episode, I want to ask you a question. Are you ready for the disaster that's coming? And there's definitely one coming. And no, that's not prophecy. It's not something the Lord told me. It's not something I feel in my spirit. It's something that common sense says, looking at history and current events, happens. It's coming because they happen so often. They're always coming. We tend to only notice the really big ones, and even those ones for not too long. So we remember Hurricane Katrina. We remember Superstorm Sandy. We remember maybe the Northridge earthquake going back to 1994. But the news in the last few days out of Kentucky has reminded me that there are a lot of these sort of things that go on all the time. And we've talked a little bit about prepping as it relates to economic downturns or things like supply chain problems. But have you thought about it in terms of preparing for the next whatever the big disaster is that's coming next? Well, that's what we're going to talk about next, and you'll find that's an important part of your financial self-defense. So stay tuned, get a pencil. I'm going to have a list of things for you to get ready, and we'll run through it when we come back right after this.
The Well Jamaican Restaurant, located at 55 Mazzio Drive in Randolph, Mass., where good food and fellowship meet daily. Check out our variety of fresh and tasty entrees and sides from our menu or the website, thewellja.com, like our jerk chicken, oxtails and rice, seafood, desserts, and more. With our drinks and juices made fresh daily, you have the option to dine in or take out. We can also cater your special event, or you can book our private dining room and let us host your special event. At the Well Jamaican Restaurant, we pride ourselves on providing superior quality food and beverages, and of course, great customer service. Next time you're in the mood for Jamaican cuisine, meet us at the Well Jamaican Restaurant. Become part of the family. Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. The Well, where good food and fellowship meet daily.
Welcome back. We're talking about disasters and current events and how to plan for them so that when they come, they impact you less. Came to me because of what's in the news right now in terms of the Kentucky floods. You've probably seen what's going on, particularly in a place called Breathitt County, Kentucky. The death toll from this past week's floods stands now at about 37, but there are hundreds of people still unaccounted for. And it's pretty clear that the number of deceased will go up. There's a certain way the media always plays these events. When something happens, they rush in hordes. You get films. They're looking for that photogenic shot of somebody standing in the rubble of what used to be their house, and maybe they're trying to rescue a few framed pictures that survived, or they're trying to find the family dog or the family cat, and you get the close-up of the crying person, and the media stays there for a couple of days and then moves on. Sports are up next, and it fades from the public view, but the aftermath of such disasters lasts for a long time after the media has gone home and gone on to something else, and the disaster itself has slipped the minds of everybody except for those directly impacted by it. Think about disasters in U.S. history. The biggest that come to mind, there was the heat wave of 1936. Don't remember that? Never heard of that? That's how this works. But in 1936, they had a multiple day heat wave. 100 degrees every day. Most people didn't have air conditioning back then. 5,000 people died in this heat wave. San Francisco earthquake, 1906, leveled much of the city. The population of San Francisco at the time was 400,000. Half of them, 200,000, became homeless as a result of the San Francisco earthquake. 2017, just 5 years ago, Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. Only 64 people were killed in the storm, but the aftermath was so chaotic, the recovery was so badly managed that 2,000 people died in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. They weren't killed by the storm, they were just killed by all the things that went bad after it. 2011, the Mississippi floods. $4 billion in damage and 400 dead. Now, let me ask you honestly, do you even remember the 2011 Mississippi floods? It's not in our consciousness. You have to Google, 20 worst disasters in U.S. history to come up with it, because this is how it works. The media rushes in while it's happening. Everybody in the country is looking at it while it's going on, and then life goes on for the rest of us. And the people left living with the disaster often have a hard way to go. Superstorm Sandy hit this area, the East Coast, in 2012. Of October, 285 people were killed in that storm. $68 billion of damage was done, and so on and so on. What I want you to know is that for the people who live through such things, the aftermath is long and difficult, and these sort of things happen all the time. These are the huge ones that make the Google lists. But little ones that don't make anyone's news list go on all the time, everywhere. I can remember my mother telling me about a small town that she grew up in, and there was a massive flood that trapped her and her parents and her siblings on the second floor of their house and trapped them up there for days. The kitchen, of course, was on the first floor, and so that was all ruined and unusable. You couldn't get in because it was underwater, but they were stuck upstairs, and they had some sort of griddle they could use. I'm not sure what they used for fuel to cook on it, but they had that, and they had upstairs some pancake flour. They didn't have butter, they didn't have pancake syrup, but they had pancake flour, and they ate pancakes dry for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the better part of a week. And for the rest of her life, my mother would not eat a pancake. She'd cook them for us kids, but she would not eat one because of the experience of living through that flood. Her flood wasn't big enough to make anyone's news list, but this kind of thing goes on everywhere all the time. And that's why I could say with confidence, disaster is coming, because one's always coming. The question is, how prepared will you be? There's a passage of scripture I'd like us to think about, and we've heard this passage a million times, and maybe never thought about it quite this way, but I want to read to you from Matthew 25. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. So it's a tale of an upcoming wedding, and the wedding party, what we would today call bridesmaids, were getting ready. 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them, but the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, Give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. The wise answered, saying, Not so, lest there be not enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. I'll stop there. Now, I know that passage isn't about disaster preparedness, nor is it about the rapture, which is how we usually hear it. It is about the second coming of the Lord and the judgment of living Israel when he comes, but that's for another day. What I want to focus on is that it is human nature not to prepare for what's possible, but rather to assume that everything will go well and everything will come to you on time. And so here you have these 5 foolish virgins, and the bridegroom's arrival took longer than they expected, and they ran out of oil. And when the need arose, the ability to satisfy that need wasn't there. When things go wrong, it'll already be too late to run out and try to get things to cover yourself. So prepare in advance. Most people won't. Most people don't. That's why people who live in California, by and large, don't have earthquake insurance. It's why people who live in floodplains don't have flood insurance. And it's why most Americans don't have any stockpiled preparations for the millions of mundane disasters, the ice storms, the power outages, the floods, the earthquakes, the who knows how many things, the fire that takes out your employer and leaves you unemployed, whatever you can think of, these things happen, but most of us assume they won't, despite how common they are. And then when the cry goes out, there's a problem, we have a need that we can't meet. So I would like to submit to you that prepping is not just about shortages caused by supply chain problems. We've talked about that in prior episodes, but it is a standard form of physical and financial self-defense. Most disasters are not anticipated even when they're common, and I want to try to suggest that you think a little bit differently and get ready for whatever it may be. And so for the rest of this episode, I'm going to walk you through a list of 35 things that I'd like to see you over time stock up and have on hand. So when, not if, but when something goes wrong, the snowstorm, the ice storm, the earthquake, the flood, whatever it might be, you're ready and aren't nearly as badly impacted as people around you will be. First thing you want to have, item number 1, water on hand in the house. Water in containers where you can keep it. And what you will need for drinking water alone is 1 gallon per person per day. So if you want to be ready for a 3-day emergency or a 5-day emergency, the people in Kentucky, for instance, won't have running water right now. All their water treatment plants will have been inundated in the flood, won't be pumping. So if they don't have bottled water, they're not going to be able to get anything out of their faucets. So 1 gallon of water per person per day for drinking water. Plus, you'll need water for cleaning things. You'll need water for keeping your interiors clean during a disaster, making commodes work. So utility water is separate from drinking water. Fill some buckets if that comes up, but have bottled water for drinking on hand. 1 gallon per person per day. Number 2, non-perishable foods. Canned goods keep practically forever, unless it's acid stuff like tomatoes. You can even pretty much ignore the dates on the cans. The canned food, as long as it's unopened, keeps pretty much indefinitely. Freeze-dried goods, things designed for long-term storage. Have some on hand so that you're not one of the people standing in line in the hot sun somewhere after a disaster, waiting for the National Guard to hand out food and water to you. Have some long-term storage food and rotate it through your regular food supply. Practice eating it so you won't be stressed out in a disaster eating things you've never eaten before and don't know if you like. So these are examples of things that you just want to have because, again, once the need hits, when the hurricane comes through and the evacuation order is given, everybody will already be at the Home Depot, everybody will already be at the supermarket, and you won't be able to get things that you need for the long haul. So we're going to pause, take care of a little bit of business here, and after this brief break, we'll come back and I'll walk you through the rest of what you should have on hand. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're working on our list of things to have on hand for emergency supplies. We've covered water, we've covered food. Those are your big life-saving ones. But there's a lot of things that will make your life way easier if you have them before you need them, rather than trying to run out and get them once you need them. So item 3 on our list, if you're taking notes, and I hope you are, a manual can opener. You know, the old-fashioned kind you twist to open the can because your power may be out and the electric one won't be working. Paper goods, paper plates. If you've got to go a long time without electricity, you won't be running the dishwasher, you'll be running through your utility water supply if you are hand washing ceramic dishes. So having paper plates and plastic utensils can be a lifesaver in emergency situations. Have a week's worth at least. Ziploc bags. Have lots of bags you can put random things in. You'll think of a million things that you need to store, maybe be able to grab and go, things you want to keep dry. So have plenty of Ziploc bags. Have paper towels and bath tissues. You all remember, because this was recent, the great bath tissue debacle of 2020. You don't want to be caught in a situation like that again. Your personal toiletries, soaps, toothpastes, deodorant, all that kind of stuff. Have some extras on hand. All baby needs. If you've got infants or very small children, have all the baby needs. Extra supplies on hand. We recently had an issue with formula across much of the country. People couldn't get it. People were panicking, especially those whose children had a special diet. These are the kind of things you want to have on hand. Pet food. If you have a pet, they need to eat too. Make sure you have some extra supplies of their food. Propane or a gas stove to cook on if you can't cook on your regular kitchen appliances. First aid kit. Prescription and non-prescription drugs. Have some extra aspirin. And if you are on a prescription that is crucial that you have some extra days supply of it. An example would be there's civil unrest. It's, the George Floyd killings come to mind. Riots ensued. They burned down the CVS that your prescription is at. If you can't readily get to another store and call your doctor to have the prescription sent to another store and all that sort of stuff, suddenly you're out of what you need. Have some extras of whatever you need. Sunscreen, insect repellent, changes of clothes for everyone. Have some clothes already packed away. This is important should you ever have to leave your home during an emergency. You want to be able to grab a knapsack or a backpack or a duffel bag and just go. You want to have important papers in a waterproof bag that you can grab them and go should you need to abandon your house. A lot of these people in the flood, their houses were destroyed. If you can save the most important things, it will make your life easier on the other side. Waterproof boots and shoes. Sleeping bags, especially in the wintertime if you live in the Northeast and the power is out during a cold snap. I remember the ice storm, I believe it was 1996, that left my house without power for 4.5 days, and it was cold. And if you've got a good rated sleeping bag that's rated for outdoor use in cold weather, then you can, between being bundled up in the daytime and in the sleeping bag at night, you'll be okay. Battery backup. You need to be able to charge your cell phone and maybe run some household appliances if they're operable. If you own a house and have some land, you might want a gas generator to run your house. But even if you live in an apartment, you can get a solar generator. It'll fit in a corner very nicely. You can charge it from the sunlight, and even a small one will be enough to charge up your cell phone, your laptop, your tablet, and keep you in communication with the outside world. Good map of your area. If you have to leave home, whether by car or on foot, you need to know where you are and how to get to various points safely. Have cash on hand. Nothing larger than 20, so it's easy to spend. And people in my field, the financial field, always tell you have an emergency fund. But normally they're talking about money you have in the bank for regular financial emergencies. Have 3 to 6 months worth of your living expenses in cash in case of unemployment, in case of disability, in case of unexpected expenses. I'm saying some of that emergency fund should be at home in cash. If you've got a $15,000 emergency fund, I wouldn't feel bad if $2,500 or $3,000 of that was cash at home, because in this kind of emergency, these disasters, the money at the bank may not be accessible, the ATMs might not be working, that kind of thing. Books, games, toys for your kids. And we're up, by the way, to item 22. I stopped counting, but if you're doing them one at a time, this is 22. Books, games, and toys for your kids. Pen, pencil, and notepad. Battery-powered lantern, headlights, or flashlights. That's item 24. Be able to see. If you've got a gas generator, yes, you can run your house lights, but if you don't, or for some reason don't wish to, make sure you got flashlights and batteries. Number 25, slow-burning candles and waterproof matches. Battery-powered radio, or even a wind-up radio. They make those, you crank them up and that powers it for a period of time. And that way you can hear what's going on whether or not you have electricity. Gloves, good pocket knife, something to cut wood if you're not in not in an urban environment. If you're out in the burbs of the country, you may want to have the ability to make a fire. Masks, safety glasses, fire extinguisher. Most house fires start in a kitchen, and most kitchens don't have a fire extinguisher, just like most people in California don't have earthquake insurance. The easiest thing to do in the event of a kitchen fire is grab the extinguisher that's right there rather than waiting for the fire department to show up, because if it takes them 5 minutes to get there, your house could be fairly well engulfed by then. So part of your emergency supplies, just have a fire extinguisher. Duct tape. Duct tape cures almost everything. Have some of that on hand. Large trash bags. There's a million things you'd use them for. Extra gas, both for a generator, if you have a gas generator, and your car. If you could carry it in the event of an emergency, grab a 5-gallon gas can, put it in your car before you leave. Why? If you live on the East Coast, Florida, South Carolina, the hurricane evacuation order comes in, and you see on the news every time, there's such a line of cars trying to get out, it's gridlocked, nobody's moving, and people are running out of gas in line. I personally don't like to let my car get below half a tank of gas, and in the situation where you had to leave, fill up that gas tank, take some extra gas with you, don't get stranded somewhere. And most of all, the thing that you will need in the event of an emergency is patience. These things take time, and more of it than we would think. Think of the hurricane that hit Houston a couple of years ago. The media was gone within a week. The cleanup took months and months and months. People were without power in some cases for weeks and weeks, up to a month. You'll be putting your life back together for a very long time after one of these big emergencies comes through. But even the small ones, the ones that won't ever make the national news, the one where your employer burned down, you're no longer making a living, there's been a regional power outage because something else happened, those sort of things, the aftermath can take a long time. So if you're prepared, you're better able to take it with patience. If this all catches you by surprise and you have nothing set aside and you are entirely dependent on somebody riding to the rescue, then these will be much harder on your physical and mental health simply because of the stress levels. So what I want to encourage you is don't think of disasters as something that happens rarely, because they happen a lot. And don't assume that they're necessarily of spiritual import. They're not all punishments from God. Sometimes they're just life. They happen. If you're as prepared as you can be for them to happen, then they won't hit you and hurt you nearly as hard as they will if you're not prepared. So this is maybe a little unusual in terms of financial advice, but this is financial self-defense, like everything else we talk about, simply because you will need much more money to buy things after a disaster than you would if you bought them before. So you will save money, you will be mobile, and you will have all the supplies you need if you plan in advance. Don't be like the 5 foolish, be like the wise. Plan for the fact that things may go wrong, because something always does. Hey, we're going to take one more break to pay some bills, and when we come back, I'll wrap it up with a final thought. That's next. Welcome back. So in this episode, we've talked about preparedness, and preparedness for a lot of things. Everything from natural disasters to economic disasters comes down to you having the stuff you need at hand when you need it. And this is not the kind of fodder we always talk about on a financial broadcast, but it does play into your financial life, and it plays into your general health and well-being. So I want you to be ready on this front too. And I want to ask you a favor. If this kind of content is helpful to you, I would like you to make us a habit. Follow us on social media or whatever channel you're seeing this on. Like and follow NECTN. Get notified when every episode is coming. And let us know the kind of things you'd like to have us discuss. We want to bring you the kind of material that will be most impactful for you. And that's going to end it for another episode. I want to remind you, when the list of things to do seems maybe a little overwhelming, remember, you just take one step at a time. Wherever you've got to get, you can get there from here. You just need a little direction for the journey. And that's the bottom line.
Welcome to The Bottom Line with John Harrison, your tour guide through all things financial. Build out your financial skill set with crucial knowledge and tactics and easy-to-follow answers to all your essential money questions. And now, your host, certified financial planner, ordained minister, multi-published author, and president of Aspire Financial Advisors, John Harrison.